Misfits, before we jump into today's episode, I want to share something very special with you. After hosting over 450 episodes of The Misfit Entrepreneur and sitting down with some of the world's top founders, investors, and high performers, I started to notice something. Different industries, different backgrounds, different paths, but the same patterns kept showing up. So I distilled those patterns into a short, powerful guide called The Misfit Code: 21 Uncomfortable Truths from 450 plus entrepreneurs. This isn't motivational fluff, it's not theory, and it's definitely not the recycled advice that you hear everywhere else. In fact, it's a fast-paced, practical playbook that you can read in one sitting and then apply immediately to help you execute better, raise your standards, break through to your next level. And if you know you're capable of more, or you feel like you've outgrown where you are, or if you're tired of knowing what to do but not executing consistently, this guide was created for you. You can download it for free right now by going to misfitentrepreneur.com/truths. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/truths. Grab the guide, read it in one sitting, and then come back and work through one misfit truth per day. All right, with that said, let's jump into today's episode. Hello, Misfit Entrepreneurs. This is Dave Lukas, and welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur, where it is our job to help you unleash your inner misfit and break through to higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best insight and information from the world's top entrepreneurs, with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. As a reminder, if you're new to watching us on our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below. Give this video a like and comment as well. We do our best to respond to all comments as timely as possible. This week's Misfit Entrepreneur is Nigel Tunacliffe. Nigel is the co-founder and CEO of Coastline Academy, the nation's largest driving school, and according to Inc., the sixth fastest growing education company in America. Now, when most entrepreneurs are chasing the hot, crowded spaces, right, Nigel did something genuinely misfit and different. He looked at the fragmented, kind of fading mom and pop world of driving schools and saw a massive opportunity hiding in plain sight. By acquiring and modernizing local schools, Coastline helps retiring owners exit gracefully, keeps jobs local, and raises safety standards for students, all while building something that scales. And the results speak for themselves. Coastline has taken, what's traditionally a sleepy, kind of overlooked industry and turned it into a tech-enabled operation, teaching over 250,000 students across 500 plus cities in 9 states. And here's what makes it, I think, even more amazing, compelling, if you will. There's a real mission underneath it all. At a time when Gen Z is more anxious about driving than really any other generation before them, Nigel's company isn't just teaching a skill, it's selling confidence. So today I want to dig into, how you spot opportunities like this in industries where everyone's kind of, in some ways, written them off, how to grow fast but sustainably through acquisition, and how to build a business that's both purpose-driven and genuinely profitable. So Nigel, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you on. And I kind of alluded to it. It's a unique story because I don't think you started out to do this. And I'd love to, spend 5 minutes or so and just have you tell us, how did you get to where you're at?
Yeah. So I was working with my now co-founder. We were in a ad tech company. We were doing really interesting and challenging work. But at the end of the day, what we did didn't really have a positive impact in the world. And so at a certain point, we just both kind of looked at each other and we're like, hey, you know what? Let's do something that has more of an impact. And we started with the mission. We wanted to eradicate car crashes. Now, obviously, that is a very grand mission. But the point was, hey, how can we make a difference in this area of life that is, modern medicine has solved so many different ways about sort of improving quality of life, improving length of life, and yet car crashes persist as this problem in society. And the way that we thought we were going to do that at first, the sort of business that we quit our jobs to start, was actually in the self-driving space. We were creating a hardware product to basically enable modern safety features on older cars. And our intended target market was families with new drivers in the household. To make a long story short, we discovered that business that we were trying to start didn't really have a market. And we had to kind of make a tough call at some point to say, hey, you know what? This is not going to work out. This product that we're making, we're not going to be able to sell it to enough people to actually build a growing and sustainable business. We got to figure something else out. And so we went back through all of our user research, the hundreds of user interviews that we did with families with new drivers, and trying to figure out what is it that we can do in this space to fulfill our mission. And we kind of just discovered or uncovered this opportunity of driving education and how it's this super fragmented market. There's never been a national driving school. There is a real lack of technology that supports this industry. And so we thought, okay, well, maybe as tech entrepreneurs, we can tackle this sort of overlooked space and kind of build the software layer that has been kind of missing. And we sort of found that, okay, in building the software layer, we're not going to be able to go and sell that to enough people. It's the wrong kind of market for us to have a pure software play. So we became the one customer of our software, and that has sort of led to the company that we have today.
Yeah. So I want to dig into that, right? Because, it's interesting. I've had a number of guests on in these businesses like this. Like, we recently had, the founder of, Milliken, he's the poop scoop millionaire, right? And he like did the same thing and like revolutionized that type of fragmented industry, has built a multi-million dollar business on literally scooping dog poop, right? So like I call these like in some ways like boring businesses, but they're often overlooked, right? So talk to us about, okay, because this is a great lesson. Like you created a product and then you literally had to build your own market for it. It was the opposite of what normally happens. So talk to us about how you essentially modernize things with the software, and then talk to us about your business model you built to kind of unlock that growth in this space.
Yeah. So the first thing we identified that was a challenge in this space for a lot of driving school owners was if you have a single location where the owner answers the phone, teaches lessons, has a couple of staff, scheduling is not a problem, right? You just know, okay, you can have a 12 o'clock lesson, you can have a 2:30 lesson, you can have a 5 o'clock lesson, and that's all you have to worry about. As soon as you grow past one location where every one of your students is within driving distance of your location, the scheduling complexity explodes. And so the sort of key insight that we had to try to make driving schools more efficient and scalable is the scheduling algorithm that allows you to have a student put in their pickup address and then have any of a set of instructors across a wide area be technically available to teach that lesson, but then to pre-optimize and only show the student the most efficient possible lesson times that are going to be served by instructors. And so we thought, okay, this is going to be a great step forward. But then in talking to driving school owners and saying, okay, well, we can do this way more efficiently. We can support you here. We can have better marketing. We can like support you in building a better business. There just wasn't a lot of interest in changing operations, getting new software. They're just happy doing what they were doing. And so we just had this idea, okay, well, what if we just like, is there a market for us to just do this ourselves? And so we spun up a website that just said coastlineacademy.com, driving lessons in your area, blah, blah, blah. We started running Google ads. And within like an hour of us turning the ads live, we had people on chat saying, hey, looking for lessons in my area, blah, blah, blah. We started talking to customers way before we got licenses at school, had instructors, anything like that, just to try to figure out, is there a business here? And we were so surprised at how quickly sort of that market showed itself to us, and thought, okay, well, I guess our move here is just to build this ourselves instead of selling software.
So it's kind of a two-part question too, because, and you could tell me maybe it's the rules of the game for this type of industry, but like your growth strategy has really been built on acquisition. So you're buying up these local driving schools, these mom and pop schools. They're like kind of to what you said, content. They just don't really want to change. They're just comfortable. And they're really not seizing all the opportunity available to them. Right. So like walk us through that. But then are we also now in an age where you don't need physical offices? Like you can go nationwide doing what the model you just said. You just need drivers in those areas to do that. Or do they have to come in and do like a whole like sit down in a classroom setting and stuff that you guys have to provide? That's, I guess, what I'm wondering.
Yeah. So our first 5 years or so, we just grew organically. We were, doing exactly what you described. No offices. We would add new instructors. There's a lengthy process to become licensed as an instructor. We would find those folks. We'd get them trained. We would hire them and have them go out and teach and use the software to sort of match these instructors with our students. And so we grew really quickly using that model. And at a certain point, especially when we started expanding outside of California, our first market, we found that the licensing process to enter new markets was a real barrier to our pace of growth. And so that's when we started to just basically dabble with acquiring a school. We thought, okay, if we can acquire a school that has just one location, they have a license, a couple of instructors, and then we can build off of that, it's going to be a big shortcut for us.
Because if you acquire a school in a state, that gives you the certifications and stuff for that state. Is that how it works? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We basically would take on that school's license and then be able to use that to grow from there. And we found that process just worked so well that there are these so many of these owners out there who have been doing this for 30 years. Their kids aren't interested in the business, and they're ready to retire. And so we found that we could make those acquisitions not just when entering a new state, but also to continue growing within markets we're already operating in. And so to your second question, yes, you don't need sort of brick and mortar locations in order to do the main job of having a driving instructor show up at your door in a Coastline car and teach a great lesson. But at a certain point of scale, we started to add these brick and mortar locations to just support the operation. And a lot of those came via acquisition, where the owner had a location already. And when we add that to sort of our overall operation, we can get more value out of that brick and mortar location that sort of supports the rest of the operations.
So talk to us further then. Obviously, there's the acquisition growth strategy. So you get the students and then, that comes with that. But talk to us about your marketing model. Like, how do you keep, the slots filled, right? Is it still just Google ads? Like, walk us through kind of your system that you guys have.
Yeah. So unlike selling, a shippable product or a digital product, our ability to fulfill a customer's need is very dependent on the geography. So if you have a student in San Diego and you have a student in LA, they are not served. We can't give the same lesson to both those students, right? If we have lesson capacity in San Diego and we don't have lesson capacity in LA, getting another customer in LA doesn't help us. In fact, the experience isn't good for them. They'll give us the money and then they're like, wait, but there's no availability, and it creates this negative customer experience. So we rely a lot on Google Ads, and we basically have a sort of system where we score every one of our locations by the sort of supply and demand ratio of sort of how many upcoming lesson slots we have, how many of those we expect to fill with existing students, et cetera. And then we market with Google Ads primarily in those places where we have excess capacity.
Okay. So you basically tune the Google Ads, maybe even on a weekly basis, based upon your availability and your scheduling capability. That makes sense. Yeah. I imagine that's a pretty full-time job. Who do you have, like a team that does that, or do you guys do that yourselves? How does that work?
So most of that is automated. So the sort of the scoring of locations, and then the sort of the analysis, and then the sort of decisioning So that actually doesn't require a huge amount of human time. It's more like building the system takes the
Hmm.
time, and then once the system is built, it's highly automated.
And hearing this, you rely on a lot of technology. You started all with technology just to make a business like this run more efficiently. How much have you been able to incorporate AI, and in what ways that it's actually useful for your business?
Yeah. So if you think about the service that we provide, it is a human in a car
Mhm.
with a student, right? Okay. Not a lot of AI is gonna automate that. In fact, finding passionate instructors, having them be really well trained, having them love the job, that's it's very much a human interaction story. Um, but then everything that sits behind that is accelerated with AI. So, our marketing automations, our scheduling automations, our back office systems, our engineering processes. A lot of that is, I say, accelerated by AI. It's not
Mhm.
that um, AI is completely doing the jobs. It's just that each of these sort of repeatable processes can be um, cut. The human time gets cut down by a lot because of
Yep.
the sort of AI automations.
So if you had to say, hey, here's the number one way that we've incorporated AI that's made the most difference, what would it be for you?
Engineering for sure. So just
Hmm.
our pace of deployments has been accelerated so much by using AI agents in our engineering process, so that we sort of switch from handwriting, all of our code
Hmm.
to defining requirements and reviewing PRs. Um, and so I think that's probably the most obvious area as well. But that's where
Yeah.
we get the most acceleration. And another really big one is in business intelligence. And so, if you think of a company of our size, traditionally might need to have a full time role for sort of financial planning and analysis, for uh, kind of analyzing data. All of that is powered by AI now. So instead of
Hmm.
one of our leaders needing to go and ask a person, "Hey, like, what's going on with this? Um, what's happening? Like,
Hmm.
what's our fill rate in these locations?" Or like whatever question you need to ask. You can just ask to Claude, and it has all of
Yep.
our sort of underlying data that supports that. So that's been a
Yeah.
huge unlock for us.
I couldn't agree more. In the software companies that we own and run, same thing. Speed to market, 10 times faster. What used to take 8, 9 months to develop, build, and do is getting pushed in less than two. The maintenance, the upkeep, all of that, obviously the code no one's writing code anymore. And it's really managing the version control around it and checking the code more than anything. But same thing, all the CRM systems, like things like Slack, email, all that stuff, all connected in, and you can query across it all. And it unlocks so much intelligence that was took too long or too hard to pull it all together and find the relationships between. So the insights into the business are anything you want's at your fingertips. And it's funny because even you probably done this too. I love to play and just like be like, tell me something I don't know about my business, but it's important and I should know, and it's like, oh, did you know this or that? So it's kind of interesting to see like how much there is there and the ideas that can come from it. In fact, I want to talk about that a little bit further, but I also want to talk about even acquiring businesses, right? As well, too, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are like, hey, I would love to acquire to grow, but they're apprehensive, that sort of thing. So we're going to take just a quick 1 minute break. We'll be right back and we'll dig into that. Misfit entrepreneurs, I want to tell you about an amazing resource that will have tremendous impact on your business and your revenue. I have used this solution in multiple businesses and it has made an incredible difference. Let me start by asking you something. Do you know how much it costs your business when just one salesperson doesn't step up to deliver? Do you really know? the cost can easily exceed six figures for just one bad hire, not just from the time, effort, and resources in hiring them, but from the lost business and downtime as well, as you have to go find a new salesperson and everything surrounding that. And the last thing any growing business can afford is to have a failed hire, especially in sales, the revenue driver for the company. But what if there was a way to know someone checked all the boxes of a great sales hunter and closer before you ever hired them? That's the solution that I found from a company called Sales Drive. They have created a solution called Drive Test. It's a powerful hiring tool that separates high-performance salespeople from pretenders by measuring the most critical personality trait needed for success in sales: drive. Drive is composed of three non-teachable traits shared by all top producers: the need for achievement, competitiveness, and optimism. And knowing who has drive before the interview dramatically increases your chances of selecting salespeople who will produce for you while avoiding those costly bad hires. I've used the solution and it works. In fact, it works so well, I've referred them to every company that I work with. And they've created a very special offer so that you can try them for free as well. You can get a free drive test assessment today at www.misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/sales drive, all one word. Start using the drive test in your hiring and never hire a bad salesperson again. All right, so Nigel, before the break, we were talking about AI and also the strategy of acquiring. I take it, your goal at some point maybe is to have at least a location so you can do business in all 50 states. Maybe you're getting close to that. But the thing that I'd be interested in is if you're evaluating, right? And for an acquisition, you could probably use a lot of what you're doing if they'll let you connect with AI to really evaluate the business. But tell us about like what makes a great acquisition candidate. Like, what are the things that you look for that, you go, yeah, that's the one for this market or for that state? And then, any other things you've learned from going through this many acquisitions?
Yeah. So we try not to do turnarounds. So, we look for a school that is well run already. The instructors enjoy their work there. The students are leaving good reviews. The owner creates a positive culture, and if those things are in place, students are happy, instructors are happy. Then anything else can be fixed. If the cars are older, it's no big deal. We'll replace them with new cars. If everything's going to be moved over onto our software, so whether they're using paper or they're using Google Calendar or they're using a sort of more dedicated software provider, we don't really care about that. We're going to pull it into our system. It's really hard to change culture, though, even with a small team, because we want those folks to be happy and productive at Coastline. And if they're not happy and productive where they're at, they're probably not going to transition super well. So that's really the main thing. If that's in place where great people and happy customers, all right, now we can figure everything else out, right? A lot of these smaller operations, they don't have super buttoned up accounting. They don't have, like a system that our AI can connect into, because there's no system. It's in the owner's head, and it's in their relationship with their team members, and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really like, all right, if we've got the right core, okay, now let's try to figure out everything out. How can we assess, how much money are you making, and some of the other metrics that are important. But if they're very profitable and it's a great business on paper, but the reviews aren't good and the team members aren't happy, well, it actually doesn't matter. That's going to be a problem for us.
No. So, but I take it when you do take it over, you make it Coastline, right?
We do, yeah.
So does that matter then if you're going to take it over and make it Coastline because you have all the reviews that you have and all of that? Or is it just because there's a local reputation maybe?
Yeah, it's fundamentally a people business, right? When you are when you're trying to sign your kid up for driver's ed, right? You're thinking about, okay, like I am trusting this school, this instructor to spend 2 hours with my son or daughter in a car by themselves and give them a great experience, make them feel comfortable, make them feel calm, have them, learn these really valuable and dangerous skills. And so, if the people aren't right that are coming onto our team, like it's just they don't love what they do, they're not happy in their role, then you've already got a kind of a problem with the trust in the community. But then also, we need to have them at our standard of trust and patience and care. And so even if we change the brand, even if we, end up hiring additional instructors, that sort of that team is really important. And, we get this question a lot from owners who sort of, they're working through selling their school to us. And they're kind of like, well, what's going to happen with my staff? I really care about these people. And we have to just say over and over, well, like your people are why we want to do this deal, right? It's that's kind of the most important thing. So, we'll take care of them at Coastline. That's the whole point.
So you mentioned something through there, and I think that's really important. Talk about the standards for your culture that you've built, right? Like you said, it's fundamentally a people business, but a lot of people also don't think about, they think of like driver's ed, like you just need to go do it. You got to go through it. It's driving school. You got to go through it. They don't think about like, I'm going to get a great experience with my driver's ed, right? So like, that's like that level of professionalism that I see a lot of times that comes to these like born business categories that separates these companies, right? So talk a little bit about like, what are the tenets of a great culture that you guys build? And then how do you create a great experience where somebody like becomes a raving fan of a driving school? Like, talk to us about that.
Yeah. So we have 3 core values. People first is the first one. And that means, we care for the people on our team. We want our team members to care for their students. At the end of the day, it's all about people. Number 2 is transparency. That means, our communication with our team members, but it also means our instructors' communications with their students and the parents, right? Like they need to know where they're at. They need to get good, transparent coaching to help them along their journey. And then efficiency. That means, we automate as much as we can to sort of empower what is fundamentally a people based product, but we want to support as much as possible with efficiency. And so kind of those are sort of the core sort of tenets of our culture. And, people first is number 1 because it's the most important, right? We have hundreds of driving instructors, and the quality of experience that our students have is the quality of experience that those instructors give. And so, to your second question, there are great driving schools everywhere. It's just they're hard to find because they're small. They're in a single location. If you're not in that location, you don't have the opportunity to go there, and it's hard to tell the difference between a great local driving school and a not so great local driving school, because it's something that you sign up for once. You sign up for the number of hours that's required by the state to get your license, and the student goes through that process. Your son or daughter goes through that process, and then that's it. So you don't have this sort of. It's not like trying different toothpastes and you're going to keep buying it over and over once you find the one that you like, right? It's kind of more like a one-time thing. And so we try to bring that level of excellence to every single lesson and build our brand on that trust, so that whether you're in San Diego or you're in Dallas or you're in Philadelphia, you can, by choosing Coastline, you're going to have that great experience that you otherwise would have to really sort of dig through all of the local options to find sort of the one, a great one.
And that makes a lot of sense. give us an example, like, and I'm doing this just for ideas. It's always fun, because anybody watching or listening, hears that and goes, okay, cool. But like, how do you stand out? What does an instructor do for a student that makes them, go, wow, these guys are amazing? Like, what are some of because I imagine you've got standard operating procedures that you teach, that you adhere to, your, not just your values, but your levels of professionalism, the things that make you, right? So what are those
Mhm.
things that, like, when somebody goes through this, they're going to experience and go, wow, like these guys are really the best. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a super good question. And um, I think one of the marketing challenges for us is there is no one thing. It's not
Yeah.
like, differentiating SaaS software where you got a feature list and, oh, this one's got more
Hmm.
features. It's a lot of little things. Our cars are newer. We have cameras in our cars. All of our instructors are background checked, drug tested, et cetera. We have this sort of level of just trust and safety that sort of encircles what we do. Um, but that's not really something that wows you. I think what we try to do that makes someone sort of finish that experience and say, that was great. Not only did I learn to drive, but I had a great experience doing it. And I'm going to tell my friends when they're looking for a driving school that Coastline does a great job. It's
Mm,
like we pick our students up from home, and that's a huge convenience. We have
right.
our booking system is really sort of easy to use and find the time that works for you and such like that. And that sounds like such a small thing, but it is a real differentiator. Um,
Yeah,
the
removing
main
friction is a
thing,
huge thing.
yeah, totally. And then the main thing is when our instructor is with the student, they are calm, they're patient, they are sort of putting their trust and confidence in that student, so that student can build confidence in themselves as they're going through this process and learning to drive. Um, and it's really hard to put that on a feature list, right? But at the end of the
Hmm.
day, it's like people are nervous about this. Parents are
Mm,
nervous putting their kids into driver's ed. The kids themselves are nervous. They haven't learned a new skill from zero for years. If
right.
you're a soccer player, you're a football player, or you play the violin, you probably started that when you were a kid. And so here you are sitting in a car learning a new skill from zero, and it's really uncomfortable. And so um, that instructor's calm and patience and support and sort of building and coaching, um, that's that's the thing that really sets us apart. But
Hmm.
it's hard to describe that until you've experienced it. And if you have one kid who goes through another program and another kid who goes through our program, um, that family knows the difference. But the only way we can really have that be known more widely is then that family goes and tells somebody else, hey, we had a really good
Right.
experience with Coastline.
Well, and that's the mark that you're doing things right, right? If people are referring you, right, or giving you great reviews that refer you, it's the same thing. But what you said in there, I use the word removing friction.
Hmm.
That's a huge thing. Like your booking
Yeah.
process, picking people up at their house, their students up at their house, like that. Usually, you have to drive to the school and all that stuff. Yeah, so like it all adds up. But that's one key point is, I think any entrepreneur out there, you should always be looking at, like, how do you remove friction, to get to the end result of your process of whatever it is you're delivering, whatever it is your product is. The more you can make that easier, and just like that, you don't have to think, like, the more adoption you get, the more people love you, the more endeared you are, and all that stuff. 500 plus cities, 9 states, right? Probably larger than that, maybe even now. um, there's operational challenges in building a business of that size, right? So, you know I guess, what broke along the way, what systems did you had to put in place to be able to scale without this thing whole falling apart and all of that?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think the operations are a big challenge. And as we grew, we didn't have like a model to go off of. It's not like there's
Right.
some other really big driving school that's got this figured out and we just need to say, okay, well, what do they do? Okay, how are we going to differentiate from that but borrow from best practices? There were no best practices. We we became the largest driving school in California in like, I don't know, our third year of operations, and now we're the largest nationally. And it's so we've had to just kind of figure it out along the way. And so one of the things that that did kind of break along the way is our initial model was our instructors. They're all W-2 employees. They're not contractors. But we would equip them with a Coastline car, and they would keep it at their house in their driveway. And that works really well logistically. We don't have to pay for parking. The instructors love it. It's this really good system. It works with our software. But once we got to a certain size, that system kind of fell apart. Like our span of control to manage the team, the fleet, everything like that. Like once we were past the point of all the instructors reporting to me directly, and now you've got a layer of management, that became a problem. And so sort of redesigning that into what we have now, which is parking hubs, where we'll have anywhere from 2 to 10 cars in a physical location. The instructors go and show up at that location, get their car, and then go and teach for their day. That was a difficult transition because the instructors loved the prior model, and it was operationally efficient as long as it was working well. And it was just, there were enough times when it didn't work well that we had to kind of break that apart and rebuild it. There's a few other examples of that type of thing where along the way, the system that worked super well got to a scale where we had to kind of break it apart and kind of rebuild it from the beginning, because now it just doesn't hold up once you're across multiple states or even just like outside of driving radius to be able to go and solve problems hands-on.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I mean it's the rite of passage in business, but your systems will break as you grow, and each level that you get to has a new design on systems. New systems may be needed, and people hear systems, and I know it's like thrown around a lot and stuff, but what you're really talking about is the step by steps of how your business operates, your SOPs, that sort of thing. The stuff nobody wants to work on, honestly. But it's the stuff that you do really, really well. Yeah,
especially entrepreneurs, right? I mean, as an entrepreneur, exactly. your job is basically to like rub two sticks together and make fire, and just figure out how you're going to just like get this stuff to work, which is just antithetical to the like, okay, let's sit down and let's write all this stuff out and like have this be a document that somebody can go and execute on. You just want to be off on to the next thing.
Well, and then you got to police it too. So it's not just writing it out and making, of what to do. Then it's making sure that it's actually being followed too, So it's, nobody likes to do it. It's not the fun stuff, but if you do it really well, your business can scale and really grow. And I think you guys have proven that. I'm hearing this too, and it's my entrepreneur brain's going a little bit. So like, if you were sitting there right now and saying, okay, we've conquered the driving school market, what's an adjacent market or another market that's like this that we could go do the same thing in? I'm curious as to what that would be for you.
Yeah, it's a super good question. And I have explored and kind of dabbled with this sort of adjacent markets for a while. And I'll share some thoughts, but my biggest takeaway is, in doing so, it's a distraction. And every time I sort of let myself go down a side quest of like, oh man, what if we did, what if we did something in insurance? Or what if we did something with commercial driving instruction? Or what if we did, oh man, how cool would it be if we did flight schools, right? And yeah, there's some kind of overlap and some ways that some of the things that we do could carry over. But actually, the one thing that we are doing well right now, we've got to do a whole lot more of that. And so the sort of the adjacent markets can be, I think once you have product market fit in the thing that you're doing, anything that is outside of the scope of accelerating that product market fit, I think can be a detractor to the business as a whole.
Keep the main thing the main thing.
That's right, 100%.
And that might answer my next question, but last question before we get to your Misfit 3. And that's really, biggest lesson that, this journey's taught you about building a company. So maybe something you wish you'd known when you and your co-founder started.
Yeah. I probably had a sense of this, but having gone through so many doublings of growth now, I think it is 100% true that every time you double in size, half of your systems break. And it's actually pretty hard to predict which half. And so we have just had to be open and flexible and have the right team members in place who can sort of recognize and rebuild systems as we keep scaling, so that we don't end up trying to operate on broken systems. We identify and rebuild, and and I think that's that goes to the very, very beginning. Your first doubling might be from teaching, having one instructor who might be yourself in our case, to having two. And then four. Each of those is like, okay, well, now systems are already starting to break because it's not just me. There's whatever. And then now as you go from 100 to 200 to 400, like different types of things start to fall apart. And so I think doing it all over again, I would just be more aware that is an inevitability, and to try to proportionally invest, because nothing, you can't design something that's going to last for 10 years in a fast growing company. So therefore, you also shouldn't overinvest in some system or process or tool or whatever, because you have to kind of be open to the fact that we have to just throw this whole thing out in 2 years.
Yeah. Somebody asked me that the other day, like one of our software companies, like, where do you see it in 10 years? I'm like, I can't tell you where technology is going to be in 6 months, let alone 10 years. I mean, 6 months ago, nobody was talking about agents. Now everybody's got an agent, so it's a, 6 months from now, who knows where we'll be in 2027, right? So, you got to adapt. That's what it comes down to. It's a great way to end it before we get to your Misfit 3. So we're going to do that. We're going to just take one more quick break, and we'll be right back with Nigel's Misfit 3. Misfits. People ask me all the time about tools that I use in my life and business to maximize my success. I usually start by telling them one of my most powerful tools is my morning habits. And of course, they look at me somewhat confused. I then explain how important it is for me to center myself and how I begin my day and plan for my success. It's critical to consistent high performance. And it doesn't take me long, about 5 or 10 minutes, because I use a great resource called the 5-Minute Journal. The 5-Minute Journal is the simplest, most effective way I've ever found to start your day in the right mindset, doing the right things, and set yourself up for success. And it is exactly what it says, a 5-minute exercise you can do each day. Let me ask you, if you could reach your next level in your life and business by spending just 5 minutes of focused time a day, would you do it? I bet you would. And I know it works because I've experienced the power of it. And you can get your 5-minute journal simply by going to www.misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. Do what I do. Use this amazing resource to give yourself an edge in your performance and your success. Get your 5-minute journal today. Okay, it's time for Nigel's Misfit 3. These are the 3 things that he wants you to take that you could put your life, your business, make a difference for yourself starting today. And the way that I always frame this to every guest that comes on the show is I say, hey, look, if you were going to leave this earth tomorrow and you could only leave behind your 3 best pieces of wisdom for the generations that come after you to help them live their best life, what would those 3 things be? So, Nigel, what are your Misfit 3?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I love this prompt because it made me have to think about it. So number 1 is persistence. Whatever you're fighting for is worth fighting a little bit longer for. And I think that last 10% of effort is often the thing that makes the difference between making something happen and making something not happen. My second one is to focus on the customer. And so This, in a way, is a counterpoint to persistence, because just persisting on the wrong thing doesn't do you any good. It actually does you a huge disservice. And so by focusing on the customer and really understanding, like, what do people actually want, enables you to be persistent on the right thing. And I would add that, expand that to life in general, persistence, and call the customer whatever it is that you're trying to do, or your relationships or whatever. It's like trying to really understand how to connect and what the person actually needs. And the last is presence. So if you can find the joy in the process, then you're going to be able to get a lot farther. As an entrepreneur, things can be really tough, right? Things can seem really crazy in any one moment. They can seem really hard, but like, what you're doing in those hard moments is actually making some of your best memories, probably. And so if you can have that presence to really kind of be in what you're doing and not just thinking about, okay, well, if I do this one more thing, then this later thing will happen. Well, no, what you're doing right now, that is the thing. And that focus and persistence and presence is what's going to get you somewhere of value, but it might not be this like long-term goal that you have in your mind. You got to just be in the moment along the way.
Nigel, that's a great Misfit 3, especially that last one. Not something people think about a lot. So thank you for sharing that. If people do want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Yeah, coastlineacademy.com is how to find out more about Coastline. And we do the very best job we can with the young folks and older drivers that are coming through and learning to drive with us. And then we're also on all the socials. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Perfect. We'll link to that in the show notes so that people can find it. The best show notes in the business. I'll talk about that more in a second. We're doing some new things with that. But first, for those of you that are new to the Misfit Entrepreneurs, your first episode with us, welcome. It's such an honor to have you with us. And I hope you become a regular listener and subscriber. And for those of you that are with us week in and week out, I cannot thank you enough for your support of the show. You are what makes this go in over 100 countries every single week around the world. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And make sure and go out and check out the show notes for this episode. They are the best in the business. Why? Because I actually take the time to go back through these episodes and take the best points that I'm learning and the wisdom and the different things that I'm finding and share those with you. We're actually working on a new format for all of that right now with our new site that we put up. So they're actually not all displaying right now, but they will be shortly. So look for a lot to start hitting the tape here soon. But check them out and go out and give this episode a rating and review. Like and comment on it. Help share Nigel's message, because we all know, and I say this in every episode, one great episode can change someone's life. Maybe something that Nigel shared today was that missing link you were looking for to get to your next level. So share this with others. And again, Nigel, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your wisdom and insight today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great.